Sup guys, and welcome back to Doctor Who Discussions. My name is Charlie.
And my name is Russell, and this week we're going to be discussing there's a teeny weeny something that's so small that you can't see it on the speck of the flea, on the tail of the frog, on the bump, on the log, on the hole at the bottom of the sea, at the pyramid at the end of the world.
And Knuckles.
Flippin' heck, that title's long.
That is excessively long.
Yeah, I used to think Moffat was a man of subtlety. Okay.
When?
Like 2005.
Yeah. Once upon a time, maybe.
To be fair, it's a Peter Harness episode as well.
Yeah. And to be fair, Moffat's first episode was The Curse of Hateful Death, which is anything but subtle.
But then again, it was a tribute to Classic Who, which was, not that subtle.
No.
But yeah, this episode.
The first time I watched it, I thought this episode was quite good. I'm going to be honest, we've just rewatched it and this episode kind of sucks.
Yeah, we just spent the whole time tearing it apart.
I'm sorry, this episode sucks.
And out of the three Peter Harness episodes, I'd say this one's probably in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I don't hate Kill the Moon, but I just don't have opinion. I don't have an opinion on it whatsoever. It just sort of through one ear and out the other for me, and everyone else was, because it's a pro-life episode, it obviously garnered a lot of controversy.
I wouldn't even say it's because it's a pro-life episode. I'd just say because
it was a really poorly handled pro-life episode.
It, much like this, has an interesting concept and an interesting conceit to get to the end, but there are so many contrivances and coincidences and, if I'm honest, plot holes in order to get us to that point. It's just... it doesn't make any sense.
And a lot of it is, like with the previous Harness episodes, very in your face about the point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a scene where world peace is achieved very quickly. Where with these characters who we haven't really gotten to know very well, and it's just achieved so quickly, and it's like, hey, Mr. President, did we just give peace a chance? It's very heavy-handed.
It happens very quickly, and it's incredibly contrived as well. Like, I'm hardly a political expert, but I don't think you can achieve world peace by getting three people to shake hands.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work that way. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it did.
Yeah, I wish it did.
Wouldn't it be a simpler universe if it did? But unfortunately, it felt that part of it felt specifically rushed, and I was when we were watching it, I was gonna say like the whole episode feels rushed, but no, it doesn't quite feel rushed. I don't think it's one of those things where you could add an extra part to it. Obviously, it's a part of a three-parter, but this specific 45-minute episode with the pyramid and the monks, I don't think you could have solved that by extending it. I felt like it needed more rewrites because a lot of it does feel contrived.
Because one of the biggest problems with this is that the fact that the monks, they need consent. And on the one hand, that makes the whole previous episode completely invalid, because what is the point of setting up this massive simulating the entire history of humanity to figure out the best way to conquer them, only to just come in and say, hey, by the way, if you ask us to rule you, we will.
Yeah, the big plan that they spent thousands of years simulating Earth's history for was just ask them.
It just doesn't work. And then after that, the consent, it still doesn't work because your consent has to be pure. But like the first person whose consent,
the UN secretary,
whose consent was out of fear and therefore it wasn't pure and therefore he died. And then the generals, their consent was out of strategy and so it didn't work and so they died. And then there was Bill, whose consent was born out of fear for her world and strategy to make sure that the Doctor could actually save the world and stop them. But no, apparently that was pure, and so she didn't die.
And she even says, like, tell you what, old man, I hope you get my planet back, right in front of the monks.
To their face!
Who don't even bat an eye. It's like, I think we may have screwed the pooch on this one, lads.
To their face, she says, I'm only doing this in order to try and kick you off the planet, and they don't care.
Yeah, it's the monks themselves, like with this whole idea of consent. One, like they don't know what they don't know what the consent means. Like, I honestly, if I would have thought that the previous two attempts they would have worked because, okay, they either way they're going to be scared for their planet, and the smartest thing to do when you have these aliens rock up to your planet and saying your planet's going to die within the next year, we can help, all we need is your permission.
I mean,
The smart thing to do is yes, please help.
I mean, the consent, not accepting consent out of fear, that kind of helps, because consenting out of fear of what will happen if you don't, that's not consent, that's being forced. But strategy, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, it is in our best interests to consent, so we consent. That's not being forced to do anything. That's perfectly reasonable and, as they would say, pure consent, but for some reason doesn't work because the story requires it to not.
And on top of that, they also mention, like, they need to be loved. They need humanity to love us. They don't do anything to warrant being loved.
No.
They just show up with this pyramid and just sit there. They don't maybe if they came to Earth and then, I don't know, solved world hunger or a deadly disease.
It would have been better if they had come to Earth, said, your world is going to die, this is why, shown them exactly why the world is screwed. Somebody tries to solve it and they can't, and they say, only we can solve it, but we have to have your permission. Then that would justify them being loved, because they did outright intervene in something they didn't have to do.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole plan with, like, misguiding, the Doctor and Co. to thinking, oh, yeah, World War III is going to start here, we can help prevent that. And then, have the actual threat be this biological mess up at a lab somewhere, which we'll get into later. That's a good plan, but they still don't warrant the humans needing to like them. And conversely, it's weird. At the same time, earlier there's a scene where the Doctor tells them, okay, everybody fire at will at this pyramid because these guys are so dangerous, man. We really need to wipe them out. When, again, they haven't done anything to warrant extinction. Like, if they'd got out of the pyramid and started shooting things up, yeah, I would probably be okay with the Doctor suddenly having this dark turn and saying we need to destroy the pyramid.
They haven't done anything to justify
They haven't done anything to justify being killed, and they haven't done anything to justify being joined.
Yeah. I mean, like,
they haven't done anything.
The monks, they're good. Like, they have a good design. The fact that they look like corpses, I mean, that actually doesn't make any sense. Like, they say, we came in a form familiar to you, but you look like corpses. You are corpses to us.
Which, it sounds very pretentious. And I said to you while we were watching, like, if they came in the form of, say, angels, kind of like what the Gelf did way back when, like, they came as these innocent-looking ghosts. But then they revealed their true form, and they're like, "Ha ha ha! I'm a fire demon now. You fell for our crocodile tears."
That would have worked a lot better.
Yeah.
Or as we discussed while watching it, they do look creepy, and they would work as a monster. And the fact that their lip movements don't match their actual words, that's okay. But what would have been better is if their mouth movements didn't just look like they were made from a low budget anime and just moved up and down. Yeah. If what actually happened was, because everything they say in the episode has kind of two meanings. They're constantly double bluffing everybody. The whole
point is they're trying to trick everybody.
So what would have been better is if what they were saying and what you could hear was one thing, but what their lips were saying, but their lips were moving, their lip movements said what they actually meant. And nobody can read them except the Doctor, who was blind at the moment, which means if you could lip read, you could actually see what they're saying. That would have been a lot creepier and a lot more effective. Or maybe that's just me putting too much thought into behind-the-scenes stuff.
I mean, that still would have been a pretty cool idea. I'll admit, it'd probably be a difficult one to sort of implement without being really heavy-handed.
Yeah, maybe a bit esoteric,
but that's still a better idea than what they did. I mean, the whole lip movement thing in this whole three-parter looks a bit weird.
It's pointless anyway. They don't give any reason, as far as I recall, as to why their lips don't sync up with what they're saying.
The only reason why I thought they talked like that when I first watched the episode because of course we knew the Mondasian Cybermen were coming back, and whenever they talked, like they just let their mouth hang open and all like the entire sentence comes out. I thought maybe these guys were going to be like a prelude to that, like maybe these were like it was kind of going to be like an Army of Ghosts reveal where like these zombies come back and then they reveal, oh, that's just a perception filter or something, and this is what they actually look like. These are Cybermen or something, but. No, that would have been too cool.
That would have made more sense, but the mouth movement thing is kind of pointless.
But yeah, the monks go from within the span of this 3-parter, they go from omnipotent in extremis to just kind of faffing around in this episode, and in the next episode we realise they're completely incompetent. We'll get to that when we get to that, but
oh, the shouting when we get to that.
Oh, bring vodka. Onto the B plot with the lab. First thing I'm going to say, Erica, played by, I think it was Rachel Dennings, the actress's name was.
I think so, yeah.
What I really liked about that is, of course, they got a. Forgive me if I'm not using the right terminology because I can't remember which is the right terminology. But a little person, somebody with low stature. That was poorly worded. Basically, they have a little person in it, and they don't draw attention to that. Like they've just cast this rather out there casting choice, but they don't draw attention or make a massive plot point out of it. And it was kind of refreshing because it doesn't. Like, what I was expecting, because it was a Harness episode, and he's so in your face about the point.
Yeah.
I was half expecting, like, her to have, like, this tragic backstory about how she was bullied for the way she was. But no, they just play it casually.
I mean, the only thing I can think of as it being in your face is because, you know, the entire catastrophe was caused by the fact that the guy had a hangover and she accidentally broke her glasses. So, you know, the smallest things can doom the world.
I think that was probably... See, you mentioned that in the episode, and I thought you were making fun of her.
No, the thing is, I mentioned that, and I didn't even think... I meant that genuinely as in terms of the hangover and the glasses. I didn't even think about how that was a pun on the fact that, you know, she was... I didn't even think about that. And afterwards I was like, oh, no, I did not mean that. I don't know if Peter Harness meant that.
I don't know. I shouldn't think so. Maybe.
It wouldn't surprise me if he did, but it also wouldn't
That's some next level metaphor.
But it also wouldn't surprise me if he didn't. Like, it's kind of amusing either way, but I suppose it doesn't much matter.
But I do like that idea of, like, the smallest things leading, like, snowballing into this massive catastrophe.
And at the end, like, the cliffhanger actually works. Like, the Doctor's got to get out, but the Doctor can't get out because it's a combination lock and he can't see it.
Like the scene where he finally reveals he's been blind this whole time.
Yeah, and Erica can't help him because she can't see it. Nardal can't help him because he got a lung full of that bacteria and is currently flaked out on the floor.
Yeah.
Bill can't see anything. Nobody can help him. And he just accepts, oh, this all contrived in a way that I'm not going to survive, so I'm going to die. And he accepts that. And Bill's like, no, we're not doing that. And then we get to the whole she consents to the monks thing, which makes absolutely zero sense, but we've discussed that.
But at least that scene in particular was quite moving.
It was.
Both Peter and Pearl were really good.
Yeah, they're always good. The cliffhanger is actually decent. Like,
it does make you wonder, how are we going to get out of this one?
Like, the monks are taking over the world now. Like, after all that, after all the work they put in to make sure that they don't, there's this tiny little detail that means they do. They take over the world.
Yeah, and I do love that last shot, like the visuals there, where you've got the Doctor looking through the window in horror, and you've got the flames in the reflection. That's some really good visuals there.
This episode uses a lot of the reflections of particularly the monks looking in on events, and that I think is a really good stylistic choice, because it does give you the impression that,
Big Brother is watching.
Big Brother is watching, but also they're behind everything. Like, there's this camera, they're looking in, but you can see them reflected it. They are, regardless of what they say, they do seem to be behind everything. I mean, there's no indication that they were behind the catastrophe at the lab, and they probably weren't. But it's obvious that they could have helped and decided not to without having the opportunity to take over the world as well.
Yeah.
Like, as much as they play themselves up as, oh, yeah, we are benevolent, they're not. This is a strategy to take over the world. They could have, if they were truly benevolent, they would have just helped because that's the right thing to do, but they didn't.
And
the monks are good in concept, but
they just the way they're used.
They
just doesn't
require
work.
so many contrivances and, because the plot says so, moments to actually work. It just ruins it.
It's like, specifically with the scene, like, you know, they've made world peace. You know, the UN, the US, China, and Russia. They're all together now. They've given peace a chance, and then they find out the doomsday clock is still like 2 minutes to midnight. And the Doctor's like, okay, what if it's bacteria? Like, he just guesses it out. Like, he just guesses it and happens to be right.
Yeah. Like, okay, so what if it's bacteria? I know. Let's leak every sensitive document in the world onto the internet and then trawl through them all. Ooh, look, there's a lab thing going on. Okay, let's shut off all the cameras and... Okay, the way that they shut off all the cameras and then look for whichever camera comes back online...
That was clever.
That was clever, but the way they got to that requires so much guesswork and just... I keep using this word, but it's
super contrived.
there is so much in the episode. It's just so contrived.
Hey, Doctor, was one of the documents you leaked online the script by any chance?
Probably. I mean, it can't have been leaked online because he obviously had access to it before he leaked any of the things online. That's how he guessed it was bacteria so quickly.
Yeah.
They just assume that the whole bacteria thing is right, and lo and behold, it is.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
the-
like Nardole suggests something else, and then the Doctor's no, I like bacteria. Bacteria sounds
like,
good.
What if it's bacteria? And the Doctor literally says, I like that. Let's go with that. Like, he says, I like the sound of that. That sounds likely. Let's go with that. And it turns out to be right. Like, it's lazy writing. They just get to the solution without actually having to work for it.
And I think this is something I was originally planning to bring up in the next episode, but I might as well bring it up here anyway. This three-parter is written by 3 different people. Wouldn't it have made more sense, if you're going to write a three-parter, why not have it written by the same person, or at least have all 3 people collaborate on this three-parter as a whole, instead of having Moffat write part 1, Moffat and Peter write part 2, and then having Toby finish it off? Why not have one consistent writing team throughout this whole three-parter, so you've got a consistent story going on, one consistent vision?
I mean, I've been re-listening to Big Finish's Dark Eyes project recently, and Nicholas Briggs wrote the entire first box set.
Yeah.
But like, it was said in the behind the scenes that after the success of that, and they decided to do 3 more box sets. Who was it? Nicholas Briggs, Matt Fitton, John Dorney, and actually I think that was just 3
I
of
think
them.
it's just the 3 of them.
They got together and they worked out exactly where the plot is going to go for the next 3 box sets, and they worked out basically a mini-series Bible for where Dark Eyes was going to go, and then they went off to write their individual stories while also communicating and saying, okay, does this fit into yours? Does this fit into your plan? Does this lead into yours? And made sure that everything made sense. Whereas here, it looks like they wrote 3 episodes and then just slapped them together to try and make a coherent 3-parter.
Yeah, I mean,
and failed.
I mean, I don't claim to know what goes on in the BBC's writers' room.
I would love to know what goes on in the BBC's writers' room. But
I always think of that scene from the 5-ish Doctors where, like, Peter Davison rings up and tries to ask Moffat if he can be in David the Doctor. And his secretary passes the phone call through and is like, oh, I've got a Peter Davison here to speak to you. Tell him I'm busy. And he just goes back to playing with his Matt Smith and David Tennant action figures. That's basic. Like that's a good joke, but it's been used so much to dump on Moffat. And it's not terribly inaccurate.
I mean, it probably is, but it doesn't feel like it's inaccurate given the quality of the writing we have.
Yeah, and
we say, considering we loved this series.
Yeah, this series was a return to form at the very least.
We are being very harsh on this episode, and we will be even harsher on the next episode. That's only because these are the only 2 bad episodes in a really good series.
Let's put it this way: no series is perfect, and these 3 episodes happen to be the one story that sticks out as being bad. Or at least for now, anyway. We haven't rewatched the whole series yet.
We'll get there.
We'll get to you, Eaters of Light, or I don't know. I was just picking a random episode.
Eaters of Light was good. Empress of Mars was less.
It was there.
We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that bridge when we cross it.
Tangents. Have we mentioned we go on a lot of them?
Yeah, there were a few other nitpicks with the lab. Well, not so much nitpicks, but again, contrivances like Erica leaving her bag in the door so that her boyfriend, I presume, could walk through the door and slam it with the bag there and smash her glasses.
Do people do that?
1, why would you leave your bag in the door? 2, why would you leave your glasses loose in there where they could easily get broken? And 3, how did he not notice the bag in the doorway?
Like, it's a good setup. Like, she broke her glasses and he had a hangover, and that leads to the potential death of the entire planet. That works, but the way that we got to the broken glasses, it could have been much less contrived. I'm sorry, I'm using this word so often in this review,
Hey kids,
but
can you guess the name of the word of the day?
it's just... That is the explanation. That could have been the title of this episode, The Contrivance at the End of the World. Sorry, the tiny thing in the infinitesimally small bit in the hole in the middle of the sea at the contrivance at the end of the world.
And Knuckles.
That too.
I mean, there are so many contrivances, you could build a pyramid out of them.
Boo. Boo.
Oh, really? That was worse than yours?
Get out!
And also, this is something that kind of bothered me. This is an actual nitpick. Like, they kept cutting back to, like, the clip of the glasses being shattered and, you know, this bottle breaking. It's like, that's a bit in your... Again, it's a bit in your face,
like,
isn't it?
Once or twice would have been good, but we get it. This thing happened.
You didn't even need to show the clip of the bottle breaking. You could have just had the guy who was in My Parents Are Aliens say, I was at a party, I'm really hungover.
And I mean, even
you don't need to show the clip of the bottle breaking. That's just a waste of booze.
Yeah, and I mean, I that does also feel a bit contrived because I get that you're really hungover, but I'm pretty hungover right now, and I seem to be functioning just fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm quite hungover as I record this.
Yeah.
Wild night last night.
Sat in one pub.
One pub is all we have in this town.
I mean, we've got like 4 or 5.
Yeah, but we don't talk about the other ones.
Yeah. You get stabbed there.
You do.
We didn't, luckily.
We haven't been there, which is why we didn't get stabbed.
We survived yet another night.
Somehow.
But again, with the lab as well, like, you've got the scene where, like, when the virus or whatever it is, the biological hazard starts melting all the plants, and the guy just so happens to take his mask off.
Why?
And sees the plants melt, doesn't think to put it back on, and then scoops up this thing that's melting life itself into his hands and then carries it back into the lab. What kind of scientist are you?
And of course later, it melts him as well. We did get a lot of creative deaths in this.
Yeah, like the CG wasn't great, but it did look pretty creepy.
It is sad that the best thing we can describe this episode had is the deaths were pretty creative. Like... But whatever. I mean, maybe they should have put less emphasis on how cool the deaths looked and more emphasis on the writing. It's like Fallout 3.
Yeah, there's so much of this is just to steal Mr. TARDIS's favourite phrase when reviewing Moffat episodes. It's using the just because sentimentality. Why did the monks do this? Just because. How did the Doctor figure out their plan? Just because. Why did the monks let Bill give them consent? Just because.
Yeah, all this happens because, well, to steal a phrase from just about every other reviewer on the planet, because the plot said so. Like, there's no reason beyond we need this to happen for the plot to go forward, so we're just going to have it happen for no reason other than it did. Makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, like the third act with the Doctor going to help with the lab, that was probably the best segment of the episode.
Probably, yeah. It was a bit we complained about the least, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it still had a massive problem in that, okay, he's going to blow up the lab. That's not going to get rid of the virus. It's just going to spread it. Like, if you're setting it on fire, that will get rid of it.
I mean, he did end up actually just setting it on fire, but the fact that he said he was going to make the lab explode, we were thinking, that's not going to help.
That's just going to spread it.
I mean, that wasn't actually a problem with the episode. That was just him using the wrong word, but
yeah, maybe
it's a funny point anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at least we did get like the really good scene where he does finally reveal to Bill that he lied about not being blind anymore.
Surprise! He's actually blind.
And I think they used the blindness quite well.
It has been used quite effectively.
I think maybe they got out a bit cheaply by just using the sonic shades, like, as bat vision.
Also, the fact that at the end, Bill goes up to the monks and says, "Can you fix it? Can you give him back his eyesight? We can make his eyesight. We can bring back his eyesight. How?
The Force.
How?
A nanomachine.
How?
Vocal cord parasites.
Explain how you can make his eyesight come back. Like, how do you do that?
Like, they give the idea that they're omnipotent, but as the story goes on, you sort of see their clay feet. Like, you realise they're not quite as cool as they think they claim to be.
Again, it's a massive contrivance. They can fix the Doctor's eyesight because the plot says so.
Yeah, it's strange.
It needed more rewrites.
It needed a consistent vision. It needed one writer, or all three writers sat down together. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's because each episode has a separate writing credit.
It felt like they spent too long trying to get to the actual finale of the episode and not long enough figuring out how to get there. It's obvious that they started at the end and worked backwards, but they didn't spend enough time working backwards because they just put a bunch of, again, I keep using this word, plot contrivances.
Like, there were some good ideas, but
some great ideas, yes.
Unfortunately, they didn't really know how to put it together, and so we end up with a patchwork coat of very, very, very contrived. I'm trying to think of a different word. I'm sorry.
Good ideas and a bunch of rubbish in order to try and connect the good ideas into a coherent story. And they made the story coherent. They just didn't manage to make it very good.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much sums up the episode.
Yeah, I think we've got nothing much more to say. We basically spent the last 20 minutes just saying the word contrived over and over.
Well, yeah.
But
to be fair, that's pretty much most of the episode, as we said.
I mean, surely it can't get any worse from here.
What could go wrong?
We will see you next time for Lie of the Land.
We have not been looking forward to this.